Princess Sophia had a long, busy day at the castle, and by nighttime she felt tired, sleepy, and ready to rest. She changed into her soft purple nightgown, brushed her hair until it was smooth, and placed her amulet safely on her bedside table. Everything seemed calm, quiet, and normal, but something in the air felt different, even if Sophia didn't notice it yet. She climbed onto her warm bed and pulled her blanket up to her chin. Clover hopped in, gave her a sleepy smile, and said, "Good night, Sophia. Don't let the bedbugs tickle you." Sophia giggled softly, patted his head, and watched him hop away to his tiny rabbit bed. Her room was peaceful, the moonlight shining softly through her window, making everything look magical. But when Sophia closed her eyes, she felt a tiny shiver run down her back. She opened her eyes again. Nothing was wrong, but something felt strange. The room was very quiet, too quiet. Usually she could hear crickets or soft wind, but now there was only silence. Sophia pushed the feeling away. She tucked herself in again and whispered, "It's just a normal night. Everything is fine." She closed her eyes once more. This time, she fell asleep quickly. And that was when everything changed. Sophia found herself standing in the middle of a forest she had never seen before. It was dark, so dark that she could barely see her own hands. The trees around her were tall and twisted, their branches curling like long fingers reaching out. A cold fog swirled around the ground, brushing against her ankles. Sophia's heart beat faster. Where am I?" she whispered, hugging her arms around herself. She tried to walk forward, but every step she took made the ground feel soft and uneven, like walking on pillows filled with water. It didn't feel natural. It didn't feel safe. Then a sudden, sharp sound echoed behind her, like branches snapping. Sophia spun around, her breath catching in her throat. "Hello," she called softly. "Is someone there?" No answer. She took a small step backward. Her foot hit a fallen branch, and the crack echoed loudly through the forest. The sound made her jump. She looked up again, now breathing heavily. The trees seemed to move. Slowly, gently, as if they were leaning toward her. Sophia's hands trembled. This isn't real," she said quickly. "This must be a dream, right?" But she didn't feel like she was dreaming. Everything felt too sharp, too cold, too crisp. A soft rustling sound came from the bushes. Sophia held her breath. Then suddenly, two large glowing eyes appeared in the darkness. Sophia gasped and stumbled backward. Her hands flew to her mouth, and she whispered, Please don't be something scary." The glowing eyes blinked once, then twice. Then they slowly started moving closer. Sophia turned and ran. Her feet moved, but it felt like she was running underwater. Her legs were heavy, slow, and hard to lift. She tried to run faster, but her body didn't listen. Every step felt impossible. Wake up, Sophia whispered desperately, tears forming in her eyes. But she didn't wake up. The forest grew darker. The air grew colder. The glowing eyes followed her, always staying close enough for her to see them. When Sophia finally stopped to catch her breath, the ground beneath her feet suddenly cracked. A sharp, loud sound filled the air. Then the ground split apart like a broken puzzle. Sophia screamed as she jumped backward, barely missing the open hole forming right where she had been standing. The crack spread quickly across the ground like lightning. The earth rumbled. The trees shook. The wind howled loudly, pushing Sophia's hair back. Sophia's voice trembled. Please stop. The crack finally stopped growing, but now the forest seemed much darker than before. The glowing eyes had disappeared, but that didn't make her feel safe. Sophia wrapped her arms tightly around herself. "I want to go home. I want to go home," she whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks. She looked around, hoping to see the castle, Clover, Amber, anyone. But all she saw was shadow. Then, out of nowhere, she heard something that made her heart jump, Amber's voice. "Sophia! Sophia, where are you?" Amber's voice called. "Amber, I'm here!" Sophia shouted, her hope rising fast. She ran toward the sound of her sister's voice. But as she reached the path twisted like a snake and disappeared right under her feet. The sound of Amber's voice faded, drowned by the cold wind. Sofia froze. "No, no, don't go," she cried. But the voice was gone. She stood there in the dark forest, shaking from fear. Her breath came in short gasps. She felt so small, so lost and so alone. The forest stayed silent. And that was the moment Sofia finally understood. This wasn't just a dream. It was a nightmare. And she was trapped inside it. Sofia stood in the dark forest, her heart pounding in her chest. The cold wind made her shiver. She tried to think of what to do, but the forest seemed endless. Every tree looked taller than the last, and the shadows grew longer and darker. The glowing eyes she had seen earlier had vanished, but now she felt like something else was watching her. She took a small step forward. Her legs felt heavy and it was hard to move. Each step she took made the ground sink a little, like she was walking on soft mud. Sofia's heart thumped loudly, echoing in her ears. "I need to find a way out. I have to wake up," she whispered to herself. Suddenly, a loud rustling came from the bushes to her right. Sofia froze. A shadow moved quickly behind the trees. She couldn't see what it was, but she could feel its eyes on her. Her stomach turned. She wanted to run, but she was afraid that running would make it worse. The shadow moved closer. Sofia's breath came in short gasps. Her mind raced. What if it's something scary? What if I can't escape? The fear grew stronger with every heartbeat. She pressed her back against a tree and closed her eyes, hoping it would go away. When she opened her eyes again, the forest had changed. The trees now twisted together, forming shapes that looked like strange faces. Their branches reached out like hands, and the shadows around them flickered as if they were alive. Sofia took a shaky step backward, but the ground beneath her feet suddenly sank. She stumbled, almost falling into a small hole. "Oh no," she whispered. "Why is everything so strange? Why is this happening?" A strong wind blew through the forest. It howled around Sofia like the sound of wolves. The fog swirled thicker, curling around her legs. It made her feel trapped, as if the forest didn't want to let her go. She tried to call out for help, but her voice sounded small and weak. Then she heard it, another voice, soft but far away. It sounded like Amber's voice calling her name. "Sofia! Sofia!" the voice called. Sofia's eyes lit up. "Amber! I'm here!" she shouted, hope filling her chest. She ran toward the sound, her feet moving as fast as they could. But the path ahead twisted and changed. The trees shifted positions, blocking the way. The light she was following disappeared, leaving only more darkness. "No! Amber!" she cried, stumbling. "Where are you?" Tears rolled down her cheeks as the forest grew darker. The wind howled louder, and the shadows seemed to grow bigger. She tried to run again, but every time she took a step, the path disappeared beneath her feet. She felt dizzy, scared, and alone. Sofia sat down on a soft patch of moss, hugging her knees. "Why can't I wake up?" she whispered. "Why is this happening to me? I just want to go home." Her voice trembled. The trees seemed to lean closer, as if they were listening to her fears. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the forest. Sofia's eyes widened. Something large moved in the shadows, slowly approaching her. She scrambled to her feet, her heart racing. She ran as fast as she could, but her legs felt heavy, like she was running in slow motion. She tripped over a tree root and fell forward. Her hands scraped against the moss and dirt. She closed her eyes, shaking, and whispered, "Please, let me wake up." When she opened her eyes, the shadow was closer. It was huge, towering above her like a giant. Its eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, and its form seemed to shift and change, making Sofia even more frightened. "I can't," Sofia whispered. "I can't fight this." She remembered the words her mother always said when Sofia was scared. "When you feel afraid, take a deep breath and be brave. Courage isn't being unafraid, it's facing your fears even when you are scared." Sofia wiped her tears and took a slow, deep breath. She stood up taller, holding her head high. "I can be brave," she whispered to herself. "Even if this is scary, I can find a way out." She looked at the giant shadow again. It didn't move as fast as before. Its glowing eyes seemed curious now, not angry. Sofia took another deep breath. One foot in front of the other, she began walking slowly, carefully, toward the faint light she had noticed before. Every step she took, she repeated softly, "I am brave. I can do this. I can be brave." The shadow followed, but it didn't attack. Instead, it moved closer, almost like it was guiding her. Sofia's fear didn't go away completely, but it became smaller. Her courage grew a little with each step. She noticed that the forest was slowly changing too. The twisted faces in the trees softened. The fog thinned. The wind calmed. Even the ground felt firmer beneath her feet. Sofia whispered, maybe I can find a way out after all." She walked carefully, eyes fixed on the faint light ahead. It seemed to flicker, but now it didn't disappear. The glow grew brighter with every step she took. It felt warm and safe, like a promise that she wasn't completely alone. Sofia took another deep breath. She felt a small spark of hope inside her heart. "I can face this nightmare. I can find my way home." And with that thought, Sofia stepped forward toward the light, ready to face whatever came next. Sofia's heart still beat fast as she walked toward the faint light in the dark forest. The glow was soft and warm, like the sun shining through a window on a cold morning. It made her feel a little safer, but she knew she wasn't completely out of danger yet. The forest still looked strange, with shadows stretching long across the ground and branches moving as if they were alive. She stepped carefully over a fallen branch and tried to think clearly. "I have to find a way out," she whispered. "I can't stay here forever." Her legs felt tired and heavy from all the running, but she kept moving, one step at a time. As she walked, she noticed the trees were growing closer together, making the path narrower. Every step made the shadows dance on the ground, and she imagined strange shapes forming from the darkness. Her imagination ran wild, and Sofia shivered. She hugged herself tightly. "I hope this is just a dream," she whispered. Suddenly, a soft whisper floated through the air. "Sofia. Sofia?" The voice sounded familiar, almost like Amber's. Sofia gasped. "Amber? Is that you?" she asked, her voice trembling. The whispering voice grew louder, but every time Sofia tried to follow it, the path twisted and disappeared. She felt like the forest was moving, keeping her trapped. Her heart thumped harder. She wanted to cry, but she didn't. She took a deep breath and reminded herself of what her mother had taught her. When you are scared, be brave and face your fear. Courage doesn't mean you aren't afraid, it means you keep going even when you are. Sofia nodded to herself. "I can do this," she whispered. "I can face this nightmare." She took another careful step, eyes fixed on the faint light. But just as she moved forward, she felt a cold wind brush against her face. The wind carried a low growl that made her freeze. A giant shadow rose up behind her, stretching high into the sky. Its eyes glowed faintly, and its shape kept shifting, making it hard to tell what it really was. Sofia's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to run, but her legs felt frozen. She remembered what her mother had said, so she took a slow, deep breath. She held her head high and whispered to herself, "I am brave. I can face this." Then something amazing happened. The giant shadow didn't attack. It moved slowly, almost as if it were waiting. Sofia realized it wasn't trying to hurt her. It was part of the nightmare, just like the dark forest, the twisting trees, and the strange shadows. It was a test. She stepped forward carefully. "I'm not afraid," she whispered again. "I will keep going." The shadow shifted again, and this time it seemed smaller, less scary. It didn't follow her closely anymore. Sofia felt a small spark of courage inside her. She took another step toward the light. As she moved, she noticed the fog around her feet thinning. The ground became firmer, no longer soft and sticky. The shadows in the trees stopped moving, and the wind grew calm. Everything around her was changing because she was brave enough to face it. Sofia's eyes focused on the small glowing light ahead. It floated gently above the ground, like a tiny lantern. She hurried toward it, careful with each step. Her heart was still racing, but she felt a little stronger now. Suddenly, she tripped over a tree root and fell forward. She landed on her hands and knees. Pain shot through her palms, and she felt tears prick her eyes. But she didn't cry. She took a deep breath, pushed herself up, and kept moving. "I can do this," she whispered. "I won't give up." As she walked, the forest seemed to notice her courage. The trees straightened up, and the shadows grew smaller. Even the wind seemed to guide her forward instead of blowing her back. The glowing light flickered as if saying, "You are doing the right thing." Sofia reached a small clearing. The light hovered in the middle, brightening with every step she took. She felt warmth in her chest, like a soft hug. For the first time since the nightmare started, she felt hope. She knelt down and whispered softly, I think this light will help me find my way out." The shadow that had followed her now hovered near the light. It looked smaller and friendlier, almost like a glowing creature. Sofia realized it wasn't scary at all. It was guiding her. She smiled a little, feeling safe for the first time. The light began to rise slowly, forming a path that shone brighter than the dark forest. Sofia followed it carefully, taking slow steps. She felt stronger with every step, braver than she had felt before. Finally, the light formed a glowing doorway, like the entrance to another world. Sofia took a deep breath and stepped forward. She felt warmth surrounding her, and the dark forest began to fade. The shadows disappeared, the fog lifted, and the strange twisting trees melted away. Sofia's heart beat fast, but now it was filled with hope instead of fear. She smiled and whispered, "I faced the nightmare, and I'm going to be okay." The glowing light carried her gently, leading her towards safety. Sofia felt proud of herself. She had been scared, but she hadn't given up. She had kept going, even when the nightmare tried to frighten her. And just as she was about to step through the glowing doorway, she felt something soft brush her cheek. She opened her eyes slowly. Sofia stepped through the glowing doorway and found herself in a small, bright clearing. The darkness of the forest had disappeared, and everything looked softer, warmer, and calmer. Her heart was still beating fast from fear, but now there was hope, and she felt that maybe she could finally feel safe again. The little glowing shadow that had followed her now hovered in front of her. It was no longer a scary shape but a tiny butterfly-like creature, shining softly in the warm light. It flitted around her gently, leaving sparkling dust behind. Sofia gasped softly. "Not scary?" she whispered, her voice trembling with relief. The butterfly twirled in the air, landing softly on her hand. It glowed a little brighter. Sofia smiled for the first time since her nightmare began. She realized that this small creature had guided her through the forest and helped her face her fears. She whispered softly, Thank you for helping me." The warm light of the clearing seemed to wrap around her like a cozy blanket. Sofia felt her tension start to fade. She had been so scared, so lost, but now she felt calm. The butterfly hovered in front of her again, as if encouraging her to follow. Sofia nodded and took a careful step forward. The clearing seemed peaceful. Flowers glowed faintly in the soft light, and tiny creatures, bunnies, birds, and squirrels, peeked out from behind trees and bushes. They didn't seem afraid of her at all. Sofia took another step, feeling braver and lighter with each one. As she walked, she remembered how scared she had felt in the forest. Her hands had trembled, and her legs had felt heavy, and the glowing eyes and shadows had made her heart pound. But now she knew something important. Being brave doesn't mean you aren't scared. It means you face your fear anyway. Sofia whispered to herself, I was scared, but I kept going. I faced the nightmare. And I didn't give up. The little glowing butterfly flitted around her once more, leaving sparkling dust in the air. The light it gave made everything in the clearing shine more brightly. The flowers bent towards Sofia gently, almost as if they were welcoming her. Sofia smiled and took another step, realizing that the forest had been testing her courage, but she had passed the test. As she moved toward a small stream that reflected the soft glow, she noticed that her own reflection looked calm and brave. She could see herself smiling in the water, even though she had been crying and scared not long ago. Sofia whispered softly, I can be brave, even in scary places. The butterfly led her to a small, soft hill covered in grass. As Sofia climbed the hill, she looked back at the faint glow of the forest that was now behind her. The twisted, dark trees had vanished completely, and she realized that the nightmare had ended because she had faced her fear. When she reached the top of the hill, she saw a golden light shining above her. It formed a doorway, warm and inviting. The light was soft but bright enough to make her feel safe. The butterfly circled around her head and then hovered near the doorway, as if showing her the way home. Sofia took a deep breath. "This is it," she whispered. "I can do this." She smiled and stepped toward the light. As she moved closer, the warmth of the glow wrapped around her like a hug. Her heart felt lighter, and her fear felt smaller than it had in hours. Before stepping fully through the light, Sofia knelt down for a moment. She looked at the butterfly, her tiny guide, and whispered, "Thank you for helping me. You showed me that I could be brave even when I was scared." The butterfly twirled in the air and glowed brighter, as if nodding in response. Sofia stood tall and took one final step into the golden light. Everything around her shimmered softly, and she felt herself floating gently. The darkness of the nightmare had completely disappeared. The forest, the shadows, the glowing eyes, and the strange twisting trees were gone. All that remained was a warm, bright, and safe feeling. She opened her eyes slowly. The first thing she noticed was the soft, familiar glow of her bedroom. Her bed was exactly where she had left it, her purple nightgown was neatly tucked, and Clover was sleeping softly at the foot of the bed. Amber peeked in, looking concerned. "Sofia? Are you okay?" Amber asked softly. Sofia nodded, smiling. "I had a nightmare, but I faced it." Amber walked over and hugged her gently. "You're brave, Sofia. Even when you were scared, you didn't give up." Sofia hugged her back tightly. "I learned that being brave doesn't mean you aren't scared. It means you keep going even when you are." Clover hopped up and snuggled beside her. Sofia stroked his ears gently and smiled. She felt warm, safe, and happy. The nightmare was over, and she had learned an important lesson about courage, kindness, and believing in herself. Sofia snuggled under her blanket again. She whispered softly, "Even scary things can be faced, as long as you're brave and kind." She closed her eyes, feeling calm. The warmth of the room, the love of her friends and family, and the memory of the glowing butterfly gave her comfort. Sofia drifted off to sleep again, this time peacefully, knowing that she could handle even the scariest moments if she stayed brave and believed in herself. And from that night onward, whenever she felt a little scared, Sofia remembered the glowing butterfly, the warm light, and the courage inside her heart. She knew she could face anything, even nightmares. Sofia slowly opened her eyes. The first thing she noticed was the soft glow of her bedroom. The familiar shapes of her bed, her nightgown neatly tucked, and her bedside table made her feel calm. Clover was sleeping quietly at the foot of her bed, twitching his ears softly. The nightmare had ended, and she was finally safe in her own room. Sofia sat up and took a deep breath. The air smelled familiar and warm, and the moonlight shone gently through the window. Her heart was still beating a little fast, but it wasn't with fear anymore. It was with relief. She looked around and whispered softly, "It was just a dream, just a nightmare." She swung her legs off the bed and walked slowly toward the window. Outside, the castle looked peaceful. The trees were still, the flowers in the garden glowed faintly in the moonlight, and the wind was soft. Sofia's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were happy tears. She had been so scared, but she had faced the nightmare and found her way through it. Just then, Amber peeked into the room. "Sofia, are you okay?" she asked, her voice soft and gentle. "I heard you talking in your sleep." Sofia smiled and nodded. "I had a nightmare," she said quietly. "It was very scary, but I faced it. I didn't give up, and I found my way through." Amber came inside and hugged her sister tightly. "You're so brave, Sofia," she said. "Even when you were scared, you kept going. That's real courage." Sofia hugged Amber back. "I learned something important," she whispered. "Being brave doesn't mean you aren't afraid. It means you face your fear and keep going even when it feels scary." Clover hopped onto the bed and nudged Sofia's hand with his soft nose. Sofia laughed softly and stroked his ears. You stayed with me in my dream, Clover. Thank you for being here, she said. The little rabbit wiggled happily, as if agreeing. Sofia sat quietly for a moment, thinking about everything she had experienced in the nightmare. She remembered the dark forest, the glowing eyes, and the shifting shadows. She remembered the cold wind that had made her shiver, and the giant shadow that had followed her. Her heart beat faster just thinking about it, but she also remembered the glowing butterfly, the small, kind creature that had guided her to safety. She smiled softly. Even scary things can be handled, she whispered. You just need courage and a little help sometimes. Sofia decided to get up and move around a little. She walked over to her mirror and looked at herself. Her hair was still neatly brushed, and her eyes sparkled in the moonlight. She felt proud of herself. I did it, she said softly. I faced the nightmare, and I'm okay. She returned to bed and pulled the blanket up to her chin again. Clover curled up beside her, and Amber sat nearby, keeping watch. Sofia felt warm, safe, and loved. The fear of the nightmare had faded, replaced by comfort and confidence. As she lay back on her pillow, she thought about what had happened. The nightmare had seemed endless and frightening, but she had learned that fear could be faced. She had stayed brave even when the forest tried to make her feel lost. She had followed the small light, trusted the butterfly, and kept moving forward. And that bravery had helped her find her way back to safety. Sofia whispered softly to herself, even when things seem scary, I can be brave. Even when I feel small, I can keep going. I'm stronger than I thought. Amber leaned over and kissed her forehead gently. Good night, Sofia, she whispered. You are a very brave princess. Sofia smiled and closed her eyes again. She felt calm, peaceful, and proud. The warm moonlight and the love of her sister and Clover wrapped around her like a soft blanket. She drifted off to sleep, this time without fear, knowing she could face anything, even nightmares. Before she completely fell asleep, Sofia thought about the glowing butterfly again. It had shown her that even in the darkest places, kindness and courage could guide her. The butterfly had reminded her that she wasn't alone, and that she could rely on herself and on those who cared about her. Sofia whispered one last time, Thank you, little butterfly. I will always remember to be brave, even in scary times. And with that, Sofia slept deeply, dreaming of bright forests, warm sunshine, and friendly creatures. The nightmare was gone forever, replaced by happy dreams and the comforting knowledge that courage could overcome fear. From that night on, Sofia remembered the lesson of her nightmare every day. She knew that it was okay to be scared, and it was okay to need help. But she also knew that courage, kindness, and hope could help her face anything, even the darkest dreams. Sofia snuggled under her blanket, Clover by her side and Amber nearby, and whispered softly, I am brave. I can face anything, even nightmares. With a final deep breath, Sofia drifted into peaceful sleep, surrounded by love, safety, and courage.